Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome. I hope you're having a great day today. My name is Jeff Gibby. I'm going to have the pleasure of reading a legal disclaimer and introducing today's guest. So let's get to it. Today's demonstration is designed to instruct you on using Metastock and the accompanying software plugins. It's not a recommendation to buy or sell, but rather guidelines to interpreting and using specific indicators and features within the software. The information, software, and techniques presented today should only be used by investors who are aware of the risk inherent in trading. Metastock shall have no liability for any investment decisions based on the use of their software, any trading strategies, or any information provided in connection within the company. Hope you enjoyed that. I do want to talk a little bit about Jeff Tompkins, our speaker today. We've been doing some business with Jeff since about January. It's probably been about a year now because there's quite a bit of development work, as there usually is, getting ready to do business with Jeff. And a couple of things that I'll say about Jeff particularly is he's a great guy to work with. Very, very down to earth. He's a good presenter. I like how very, very succinct he is. He does a really good job of presenting. In fact, if I could emulate a presentation style, it would probably be Jeff's. But in addition to that, we've had a lot of chance to work with really just a ton of the students that he has been developing over the years. And I can't say that anybody's even ever reported a negative comment or had anything negative to say about Jeff Tompkins or TradeTrend. Absolutely successful relationship. He does a great job. What he's going to show you today in the add-on has been very, very successful this year. And take a listen. So with that being said, Jeff, how are you today?
I am very well. Thanks for all the kind words.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
You're welcome. I'll send the bill later. Dude,
checks in the mail.
Yeah, I'll do so. I'm doing very well. It's pretty hot. I know you're up in Boise, or in the Boise area. Am I remembering that right?
Yeah. We're supposed to hit 100 today. I think it's getting close.
Yeah. It's a scorcher. In any case, I'm sure people don't care about the weather as much as they want to talk about trading. Let me go ahead and turn the screen share over to us. Is there anything in particular that I missed when I was giving you that fabulous introduction?
No, I would just add to that, reciprocate the kind words that you said. And I've been very, very pleased with Metastock. And I know that our customers are very happy with the service and everything that they get from Metastock. We get nothing but great compliments. So I want to thank you guys for reciprocating that. And so I'm just excited to share some actionable information with the group today that they can walk away with at the end of the session and use in their trading. And then we'll talk a little bit about how they can get access to TradeTrend on Metastock. So that's all I would add.
All right. Well, I'm going to get out of the way.
All right. Are you able to see my screen, or do I?
Oh, yes. Over here, the audio sounds fantastic, and the screen is coming through.
Screen's coming through. Okay, that was easy. Well, I'm going to skip the disclaimer.
Ooh.
Jeff went ahead with the disclaimer, so I'll just skip right over that and get into the agenda for today. So we'll spend about an hour together today, and we'll talk about how to use one indicator to predict markets in any time frame. So if you've attended any of our sessions in the past, you know that I like to provide education that is tailored not just to one trading style or one type of trader. I'd like to provide information that works with any style of trading, whether that be intraday trading all the way down to scalping, which we have customers who do scalp the markets, all the way up to swing trading and position trading for longer term investing. So what we're going to talk about today will work in any time frame, and we'll specifically be looking at one indicator that is available on all retail trading platforms, including Metastock, and how to use that indicator to predict momentum shifts and trends in the market. So this is going to help you determine exactly when to buy and when to sell without any guesswork. And you'll be able to identify when the momentum is shifting in the market. So again, regardless of what your trading style is, what time frame you trade in, or even what market you trade, this does apply to all markets and all time frames. So it works with stocks, it works with futures, it works with forex, and you can even use it if you're an options trader. And then we'll go through some trade examples, and then I'll show you how you can get my trade signals on the house. So we're going to start off by talking a little bit about the market in 2018, last year. This year has been pretty volatile as well, but I really want to focus on some of the sell-offs that we saw in 2018 because it was an unusual year in terms of market corrections. We saw 4 major market corrections in 2018. So we're going to take a look at those and how this one indicator actually predicted every correction that we saw in the market last year. Just out of curiosity, quick check in the chat box if you guys were trading at all last year in 2018. Just kind of curious to get a feel for how many of you guys out there were in the market last year. It was pretty crazy. Yeah, so it looks like we've got some people who were in the market last year. Unfortunately, a lot of people were taken out of the market because of all the volatility and the market sell-offs, the corrections that we saw take place. And so I think at the end of the session today, you're going to have a really great tool that you can use that could have helped you predict these sell-offs before they actually occurred. So we'll get into that here in just a sec. But it didn't only predict these 4 corrections that we saw in 2018. It also predicted the flash crash of 2015. I bet a few of us on here today were trading back in 2015. And this particular indicator predicted that market crash, that flash crash that we saw where the Dow opened down over 1,000 points at the open on the morning. And it predicted it an entire day before it happened. It also predicted the 10% correction in October 2014, an entire 2 weeks before the sell-off. And it predicted the crash in July 2011, several days before bears began driving the prices down. And then lastly, it predicted the major sell-off in 2008. If you guys were trading way back then, about 11 years ago, you'll remember that there was a really big sell-off in the midst of the housing crisis, and the market lost more than half of its value in a very short period of time. So it predicted that as well. So this is not an all-inclusive list. This is not limited. It predicted many other market trends and shifts in momentum. But I'm just, the purpose here is just to highlight the major ones that it caught. And so we'll look a little more closely at these. So let's start by doing that. This is a chart of the S&P 500 index, the SPX. It's a daily chart. Now, again, I said that this particular indicator works on any time frame, but we're going to start out by looking at higher time frames like the daily chart, which is predominantly what I trade off of. We do have a lot of members that trade intraday, but we'll look at these sell-offs on the daily chart. So this particular time period encompasses all of 2018, so it starts in January and ends in December. And you'll notice that the very first correction we saw last year that took place in the latter part of January into the month of February, where we topped out around 2,900 on the S&P, and we saw a mean reversion to the 200-day moving average. So this was about a 10% correction, pretty major sell-off after a really long-term run-up in prices in the market. We went in kind of a ranging pattern there, and then we saw a second market correction in March. We topped out around 2,800 on the S&P and then saw another mean reversion to the 200-day moving average. That's the red line that you see there before going into that nice, well-defined, steady uptrend through the middle part of 2018. And then, without any warning, we see another major correction. This time, we sell off below the 200-day moving average, which really frightened a lot of traders, and rightfully so. As you can see on the right side of that oval, there's another sell-off that we're going to talk about here in just a second. But this particular correction in October was pretty dramatic. We saw a sell-off down to the 2,600 level on the S&P. And then we go in a very similar ranging pattern that we saw earlier that year until we get the major sell-off that almost put us into bear market territory in December, topping out around 2,800 again on the S&P. this time selling off down to nearly 2,300. So this was a very significant sell-off, and again, frightened a lot of traders, shook a lot of people out of the market, and unfortunately, a lot of people lost a lot of money. But when you see the tool that we're going to give you today and the education that I'm going to provide for you on our session this evening, you could have actually predicted all of these sell-offs before they actually took place. So I'm going to show you how to do that in just a second. So I'm actually going to do something that I typically don't do on my educational classes, and that is show you actual live trading results from my personal trading account. I am a trader. I do trade for a living, and I show these not to brag or boast. I show them because I believe that it's important to provide proof of what's possible using what I'm going to teach you. And that's simply what this is. I do trade stocks, I trade options, and I trade futures. So these are screenshots of my futures account during those market sell-offs in 2018. And nothing crazy here. These are all one contract trades, so I'm not trading anything major, simply one contract trades using the indicators that I'm going to teach you guys today, and using these in the futures market. You can see that over an $8,000 profit in a day with over $27,000 in open profits on one of the sell-offs from last year. This is another one of over $6,500 in a single day, though nearly $8,500 in open profits. Again, another $6,000 day, over $8,100 in open profits. And this last one here of over $5,400 in a day with over $5,900 in open profits. So again, this is what I was able to accomplish using these momentum indicators to warn me that a market sell-off is looming. And so I'm excited to share with you guys today how I did this. So before I do that, a little bit about myself. If you have not attended one of my online classes, I'll give you a brief background. I really like the one that Jeff gave, so I'll just add a little bit to that. I'm the Chief Investment Strategist of the Trading Profit, LLC. I have about 20 years of experience trading the stock options and futures markets. Like you guys, probably most of you, I've gone through a lot of trials and tribulations to try to get to where I am today as a successful, consistent trader. I did receive professional training at Morgan Stanley, and I'm the founder and chief investment strategist of the Trading Profit, as I mentioned. We currently have actually closer to about 20,000 members in over 100 countries around the world. And the reason that I became a professional trader and decided to trade for a living was to achieve freedom. I think that's why most of us ultimately want to trade. We're probably initially lured in by the what the right word is, but we're lured by what seems to be easy money. Trading is by no means easy. It can be simple, but it's probably the most difficult, simple money that you'll ever make. It's not an easy endeavor, but when you master it and you have the right tools, it can be very rewarding. And that's what I aim to do, is to provide you guys the tools to help you be successful and ultimately achieve freedom of time, which is really why I trade. I like to do what I want with my time. I don't want to be stuck behind a desk, from 9 to 5. So that's why I trade, and trading provides me that freedom. And I'm also the founder and creator of the TRADETRENDO Signal software, which is an add-on for MetaStock. And we'll be sharing some information with you on that today and how you can get your hands on it. So I often get asked, how did I get started in trading? Everyone catches the trading bug in kind of a different way. And so I often get asked, what got you started? What drew your interest to trading the markets? And for me, it started quite a long time ago with a summer school class. So it wasn't a required class. It wasn't one where I failed out of the class during the regular school year and then had to play catch up in summer school. It's more one that I was just kind of interested in and thought I would try out. And this particular class was an investing class, and I was really quite thrilled that my school system at the time, I was living in California, provided this opportunity. And my parents really encouraged me to get involved, and I did. And in this particular class, at this time, there wasn't really, the internet was kind of just getting started. You had your basic email and your AOL chat rooms and the like, but there wasn't nearly the access to information through the internet that we have today. In fact, most traders and investors got a lot of their information from the print publications still, like Investors Business Daily. So we didn't have computers even in this class. We were simply given a copy of Investors Business Daily, and we were told to pick out a stock on the very first day of class, and we would be following that stock throughout the summer. And interestingly, we weren't given any skills on how to select a stock. It was more of a throwing darts at the dartboard type of scenario. And the subject matter progressed to a point where we would build up a portfolio of stocks and follow it. But in this particular class, on this first day of class, we were given a copy of the paper and asked to pick out a stock. And I remember the stock that I picked out. It was Western Digital Corporation, ticker WDC. And I just randomly picked it. I'd heard of them, didn't know much about the company, but I thought, well, I'll just randomly start with this particular stock. And I couldn't believe it. That stock started to go up, and I was like, this is incredible. This seems very, very easy. But by the time the week was over, I realized it wasn't that easy, because each day the instructor would have us pick out a new stock. And that Western Digital stock continued to go up. But then as I picked new stocks, a lot of them went down. And I'm thinking, well, this, is not as easy as throwing darts at a dartboard. There's got to be something more to this. So I did have some successes, but there, frankly, to be completely honest, a lot more failures than there were successes. And until we were taught to, analyze fundamentals and look at charts, and we started to get into technical analysis and those types of things later in the class, I really didn't do very well, unfortunately. So I want to help you guys avoid that. A lot of traders, unfortunately, when they're first introduced to the markets, or even traders that have been around a long time, will have some success with a system only to run into failure down the road. And so it's really crucial that you have a system and a set of tools that allow you to be consistent regardless of market conditions. And really, that's what I came to find, was that the reason a lot of these stocks that I had picked randomly didn't do well is because the timing wasn't right. It wasn't that they were bad companies. It was that I did not time my entries and exits correctly. So by the end of our session, you're going to learn how you can use this one particular indicator that's, again, as I mentioned earlier, available for free in any trading platform, including Metastock. And I'm going to show you guys how you can actually use it as a predictive tool. Now, I don't know how many indicators are out there now. There's tons of them, probably, excess of 100. And frankly, most of them are garbage. Most of them do not work. Some of them do work. And even the ones that do work need to be used appropriately and correctly in order to achieve success, to achieve consistent results. So a lot of it comes down to how do you implement the indicator in the markets? And you'll learn to do that today. And the cool thing is, it works for stocks, it works for options, futures, and forex. So it works really for any market that produces a chart. And once you learn the correct way to use the indicator, you'll never look at the markets or trading the same way again. And I promise you that, because that's my experience. And so while it took me more than a decade to become a consistent, successful trader, I'm going to shorten the learning curve for you guys today and hopefully make it much quicker. So by the end of the session, you'll discover why momentum is so vital to trading success. I'll teach you how to read momentum shifts and continuations. And this has the potential to really turn your trading around if you're struggling right now with your trading. I'll teach you how to use momentum as a leading indicator, not a lagging indicator. And I'm going to make a case for that in a second, because we all hear, all indicators are lagging. By the time you get the signal from the indicator, it's too late. Well, I'm going to show you why that's not always true. And then I'll show you how this particular momentum indicator can predict market moves. And then I'll show you how you can get your hands on a tool that will change your trading forever. And I say that because, again, that's my experience with the tool that I'm going to give you guys access to. So I want you guys to imagine a bowling ball. You're probably wondering, why is there a bowling ball on a presentation about trading? Well, the reason is because we're going to draw an analogy here related to momentum. And I chose a bowling ball because most of us have probably at some point in our lives been bowling. And even if you haven't, we can fairly reliably predict what happens with a bowling ball. So I want you to imagine taking a bowling ball and winding it back, releasing it from your fingertips, and rolling it down the bowling alley. And I'm sure if I put a survey up in the chat box, we could all guess what's going to happen. The ball is going to roll down the lane. If you're a decent bowler, if you're like me, it may go in the gutter. But regardless of what happens, it's going to continue rolling until something stops it, right? So whether you roll it down the gutter and it hits the end of the lane and you don't get any pins down, or you're a good bowler and you roll it straight down the center and get a strike, something has got to stop that momentum, right? And I want you to keep this idea in mind because it applies to the markets. The difference being that what drives trends and momentum in the market is the catalyst. So the catalyst with the bowling ball is simply the force of our arm propelling the ball forward, and that's what creates the momentum. And in order for that momentum to stop or change directions, there needs to be a catalyst at the other end of it. So for the markets, that momentum is simply supply and demand. It's buying and selling pressure, right? So in physics, and we certainly won't get into a physics lesson here, but in physics, again, just for background knowledge, so you understand the analogy here, it's simply the property or tendency of a moving object to continue moving. So for an object that moves in a line, like the bowling ball, or a stock, or a futures contract, or a forex pair, the momentum is simply the mass of the object multiplied by its velocity. So this is what's called linear momentum. And that's as deep as we'll get into the physics lesson. But linear momentum does apply to markets. And that's actually what creates trends and momentum in the market. So when you see a stock go up, it's because there is more buying pressure than selling pressure. And that sets in place momentum that will shift back to the downside when the catalyst shifts, when there's more sellers than there are buyers. All right. And that's important to understand in terms of the indicator that we're going to be looking at here in a second. So a lot of my trading and strategies that I use to trade the markets are momentum based for that very reason, because momentum is actually the most predictable metric in the markets. And you'll see that here in a second. So what it measures is it simply measures the velocity of price changes compared to the current price level. So this is going back to that linear momentum in physics. And it's measured by continually taking price differences for a fixed time period. So a momentum value generally above zero indicates prices are going up, and below zero indicates prices are moving down. So that's just at its most basic definition. And the cool thing is, although we're kind of focusing on those market corrections, the sell-offs that we saw in 2018, it doesn't just work in one direction. So it doesn't only work for market crashes. You can actually make money on the way up because it measures the rate of not just falling prices, but rising prices. And so for trending analysis, which is what we're going to use it for, it's a valuable indicator of strength or weakness in the underlying security's price. So you'll see that I've got another chart here in the center of the screen. This is also a daily chart, and it's I believe the SPY, the S&P 500 ETF that tracks the SPX. And this particular indicator actually pinpoints turning points or shifts in momentum in these markets with incredible accuracy. So this indicator, momentum indicator that we'll look at here in a minute, actually picked this shift in the trend. So you can see on the left side of the chart, we had a pretty significant sell-off, and the momentum indicator actually told us right there near the bottom of the sell-off that momentum was going to be shifting and prices could potentially turn around in the near term, which we saw occur right when the indicator told us that the momentum shift was taking place. and we saw that very nice uptrend in the SPY. So it's quite accurate. All right, so we're just about to get into the indicator and how to use it. And so I want to give you some examples of momentum indicators just so you have an idea of what they are and kind of how they work. There's probably, I would guess, a couple dozen momentum indicators available on retail trading platforms like Metastock. And they all provide a little bit different information. And they use different inputs, of course, to calculate momentum. And really what it comes down to, like I mentioned, is how do we implement these in a live trading environment? These all have their strengths and weaknesses, and some are better than others. So the first one many of you probably have heard of is the average directional movement index. And this is a good one to help measure the overall strength of a trend. It's often called the ADX indicator. The next is the commodity channel index. This is often referred to as the CCI. And what it does is it measures the relation between price and normal deviations from a moving average. So you can see that these are both momentum indicators, but they have different inputs and they give us different information. The next one is the MACD, or what's often called the MACD. And this one's a nice versatile momentum indicator because it actually tells us not just the strength and direction of the trend, the momentum, but also the duration of a trend and a security's price. And then lastly is the relative strength index. Most of us have heard of this one. It's often called the RSI, and it's a technical indicator used to chart current and historical momentum strength or weakness. And a lot of traders will use this as an overbought or oversold indicator, but really at its true fundamental definition is a momentum-based indicator. Okay, so we're going to focus in on one of these in particular that I found is the most reliable in terms of predictive value, and that's the MACD. So this is the MACD. It stands for Moving Average Convergence Divergence, and I'm going to show you here in a minute how you can use it to predict market moves. Okay, so if you haven't heard of this, I'm sure most of you guys on here probably at some point been exposed to the MACD. It's one of the more commonly used indicators. Unfortunately, a lot of traders don't use it necessarily correctly, and I'm going to show you here in a minute too how you can use it in a way that's much easier to interpret versus the more complicated lines and crosses that you see on a typical MACD indicator chart. So again, it stands for Moving Average Convergence Divergence, and this one's been around a long time. It was developed by Gerald Appel back in the 70s, but it doesn't just work for stocks. That's how it was originally developed, but it's since been expanded to be used in other markets like futures, forex, and so it does a really nice job at predicting momentum, strength, direction, and duration of a trend. So again, there's a lot of ways to use this one. Some traders will use it as a divergence indicator. Some use it as overbought, oversold. But really in terms of predictive measures, because remember the whole definition of linear momentum and how once it starts, it tends to continue until something stops it. Okay, remember that. And the best way to interpret that is with the MACD cross. So a buy signal, it's generated when the MACD line crosses above the signal line, and a sell signal is generated when the MACD line crosses below the signal line. Okay, so let's take a look at that on that same chart that we looked at earlier, the daily chart of the S&P 500 index, the SPX. So again, this encompasses all of 2018. And you'll see on the left side, at the end of January, we see the cross. So I've got the MACD indicator plotted here on the bottom of the chart. And this cross actually warned us in the shift in momentum after a very steady, well-defined uptrend that I don't have on the chart. But if you go back into 2017, you'll see that. And it actually told us that there's a potential for a market correction. And sure enough, it caught it pretty close to the top there at the end of January. And by the way, you're going to notice there are lots of other crosses on here. We're simply looking at the crosses that took place near the market corrections last year. So there was the next one. that we'll take a look at the March correction. And you'll notice the cross. And this one didn't get it quite near the top, but it got it right there around the 50-day moving average and gave us pretty good warning that there was a sell-off looming. This one wasn't quite as obvious. And by the way, the slope of the cross, the magnitude of the cross, where the cross takes place relative to the zero line, those are all significant. We don't have time to get into a lot of the nuances of these crosses today, but I'll show you here in a second how you don't have to be so concerned about that. This one took place closer to the zero line. It was about as steep as the January cross, and we see that it did a pretty nice job at predicting the market shift in market momentum. This next one in October gave us a pretty good warning about a week ahead of time that we could see a potential market sell-off, which did occur in October. And then the last one that took place below the zero line that we see with about the same slope as those first two in January, February, and March, we see occurred in December, and there's the big sell-off. And this one gave us pretty good warning, not quite near the top, but after 3 or 4 days of trading, we see that there's the potential for a market correction. So again, these are 4 examples out of many, many examples that you could find going through charts or any major market events like the ones that I mentioned at the beginning of our time together today. So these are not flukes. These do occur over and over again. You can go back decades and find these, and they'll continue to show up in the markets down the road. Now, I'm going to show you an easier way to interpret the MACD. You'll notice that on what the chart we just looked at, there were a lot of crosses, right? So it's easy to look back at an indicator like the MACD and in hindsight say, oh yeah, there was the cross. It gave us good warning, right? But when the lines are close together, like you see right here, it becomes a lot more difficult to interpret and to determine, which line is crossing which. How am I going to act on this in my trading strategy? It becomes very challenging. So rather than use the MACD 2-line indicator, it's much easier to interpret the MACD histogram. How many of you guys have heard of the MACD histogram? Just put a X in the chat box. Good, yeah. So a few people have heard of it. More people tend to use the standard MACD 2-line cross, but it looks like Greg and Ted and a few others have heard of the histogram. So the histogram is nice because it's easier to read, and you get a sell signal when it goes from green to red, and a buy signal when it goes, oops, sorry, I jumped ahead too quickly there, when it goes from red to green. Okay, so let's take a look at that on a chart. This is a daily chart of the stock Momo, ticker MOMO, and you'll see I've got the histogram plotted at the bottom. And so when we see a shift from red to green, like we see there at the bottom left, it tells us that momentum is shifting from either sideways or down to upward momentum or an uptrend. And we see that it did a very nice job at predicting that uptrend that we see over the next couple of months. And when we get a shift from red to green, it tells us that we may want to exit this position if we're long the stock, or if we're an options trader and we bought call options, or we're a futures trader and we're trading futures on single stock futures, or we're trading futures on an index. That's when it tells us that we may want to take profits at that point. And this told us that the momentum was slowing or potentially turning downward. So we see that that sell-off over a couple of days, and then we go into a bit of sideways movement before it goes back, excuse me, from red to green. So we know that, okay, the MACD histogram is telling us that momentum may be shifting back to the upside, and it's time to take a long position again. And we see that it did a very nice job at giving us forewarning that momentum and trend were going to be moving to the upside. And then we get the sell signal again here as we see the trend shift direction and begin to sell off there over a few days until we go from red to green once again, giving us another buy signal as momentum and the trend continuation takes place. So pretty accurate indicators. So you guys can play around with this in your own trading platform and see how accurate, in fact, it is on many, many different stocks, futures, forex, whatever market you guys trade. Here's another little trick that I use with the MACD histogram, and that's to use buy stop and sell stop orders to confirm the momentum direction. So if you guys are familiar with buy stop or sell stop, most traders, will use a market or a limit order to enter a trade, but using a buy stop order for a long trade or a sell stop order for a short trade actually gives us that extra added confirmation that the trend and the momentum are actually going in the direction that we anticipate. So we would use a buy stop to enter a long trade and a sell stop to enter a short trade. And this will help filter out a lot of the false signals that you get, because every indicator does give false signals. And so if we can add an extra layer of confirmation in there to help weed some of those out, the more the better, right? So by using these types of orders, where you would use a buy stop above the high of the signal bar or a sell stop order below the low of the signal bar, it will help increase the consistency of the system. Now here's the cool thing. So far, I've made a strong case for the MACD histogram and how it helps predict market shifts, momentum shifts, trend direction. But when you formulate the right combination of momentum indicators, because if you can use multiple indicators to confirm, to add all those extra layers of confirmation to help filter out false signals, you can actually do a lot better than the MACD by itself. So when we use things like buy stop and sell stop setup orders and multiple momentum indicators that all give us different information, and we can use that in a way that's predictive to find shifts in momentum where trends are starting to form, we can do better than the MACD by itself. So this chart is of TRADETREND, the add-on for Metastock, where the programmers over at Metastock that I've worked with, we've developed this combination of momentum indicators that actually does better than the MACD. So this again is a daily chart of the S&P 500, and we've got the diamonds and arrows plotted to show where TRADETREND actually picks up the shifts in momentum. Okay, and it works with options. So I'm going to show you how you guys can use this with options for you options traders out there in just a sec. But again, I'm going to highlight the 2018 sell-off. So this is encompasses the entire year of 2018. And the diamond is the warning. The diamond tells us, and I apologize if it's a little small on your screen. Hopefully you can see it okay. The diamond tells us that there's a potential sell-off. And then when we combine it with the extra that extra confirmation of where to get in using that sell stop order, the arrow tells us where the trade's actually triggered. And you can see that the trade trend indicator that combines the proprietary blend of momentum indicators picked that thing right near the top. And it got it close to near the top of that March sell-off. And it got it a week before on the October sell-off. And it got it close to the top on that December sell-off. So it caught these sell-offs before the MACD indicator did alone. And it's not just these sell-offs. This again is a daily chart encompassing 2018. And you can see all the other signals that it provided near tops and bottoms of trends, whether it was continuations, like you see in the middle of the chart, as it's getting us into the trend and then out before it reverses and then back in as it goes up, or even in these ranging conditions. Okay, but if we focus on that far right sell-off in December where we get the sell signal, this again is for you options traders. We have a lot of students who use this to trade options. If you had only bought 10 contracts of the 264 strike at the money puts when the indicator told us the market may be selling off in the near future, this particular trade, one trade out of all these that we see on the chart, produced a profit of nearly $10,000 before commissions and fees. So this is what's possible with options using these signals. And we have a lot of members that use TRADETREND to trade options. And a lot of our members who come to our group with, starting out with very complex multi-leg strategies like credit spreads, iron condors, calendar spreads, ratio spreads, A lot of people come in, trading these complex multi-leg spreads, and they're able to simplify their option strategies by, going to straight just calls and puts based on the trade trend signals because of the accuracy of the timing of the momentum shifts. Okay, so this is just one example of an options trade off of this chart in that December sell-off. So I mentioned again that I used this in my own trading. So here's a few more examples of futures trades that I made using the trade trend indicators that are available as an add-on to Metastock. All right, and just one contract per position. And I generally have 10 positions or so or less. I diversify my positions. I don't put all my eggs in one basket, but just one contract per trade. And you can see the profits that are possible trading the futures market, okay, using the trade trend indicator. So again, this is real live money, guys. This is not hypothetical. This is not paper trading. This is actual real money that I use to trade using the trade trend signals. All right, so here's my promise to you guys for joining today. I want to help you guys have days like these, and I'm going to give you access to a tool that lets you copy my trades. So these trades that I just showed you out of my live account, I'm going to give you the tool called Trade Trend that I use personally to make trades just like this. So there's a one-time opportunity to join me to discover how I make consistent income in the markets day after day, week after week. Do I have losing days? Yes. Do I have losing weeks? Yes. But over the long term, using the trade trend indicator, I'm able to produce consistent profits in the markets and provide an income for myself and my family. So again, the add-on to Metastock is called Trade Trend. And we have hundreds of users, customers who use the Trade Trend Metastock add-on, love it. And I'm really excited to roll it out to you guys today. So I just want to again highlight the difference in using the MACD indicator alone, which I've demonstrated on our session today, does a really nice job in terms of predictive qualities. But I want to show you how you guys can do better with Trade Trend. So again, this is a daily chart of the S&P, and I don't have the MACD plotted on this particular chart, but it did tell us to take a long position on this particular day that you see near the middle of the chart. Okay, and I'm going to kind of put this in dollar terms for you options traders out there. So if you had gotten in on the MACD, you would have done pretty well on that trend. Our Trade Trend members were actually able to get into this about a week before the MACD indicator told us that momentum was shifting back to the upside. Because you see, we had that sell-off there over about a couple of weeks where we see that mean reversion to the 200-day moving average. And Trade Trend did a really nice job at catching that momentum shift near the bottom and warning us that we could see a shift back to the upside. Again, the MACD still did a pretty good job, but if you got out when it told us to exit the trade, the MACD traders would have been in this for about a week. And if you were buying at the money call options, so we're just talking simple call purchase here, you would have had a profit on 10 contracts of about $335 before commissions and fees. But to show you and put it in dollar terms for what's possible with Trade Trend, that would have gotten you in about a week earlier, and on 10 contracts, just simple at the money call contracts, a profit of nearly $5,000 when exiting at the exact same time as the MACD traders. So in dollar terms, that's what's possible with Trade Trend and what's different between using the MACD alone and the Trade Trend add-on for Metastock. The cool thing is, as I mentioned, this works in all markets, it works in all time frames, and it works with any size account. So if you've got a small account, you can use the signals, and you can use them as well if you've got a large account. So this is an actual screenshot of another ticker that I trade fairly frequently, the leveraged bull ETF, ticker TNA. And this is a daily chart. And we're not talking options now. At this point, we're just looking at simple share purchase based on 1,000 shares before broker commissions and fees on the signals. And again, the green diamond and arrow is a long signal, and the red diamond and arrow are short signals. And so based on 1,000 shares, just to give you an idea of the profit potential on these signals. So on these 6 trades alone, nearly $40,000 in profit on 1,000 shares before commissions and fees. And I mentioned it also works on intraday charts. So this is I believe, an hourly chart on the same ticker, the TNA. Yep, this is hourly chart. Okay, but I just want to highlight real quick the buy and sell signals and the accuracy that you'll see based on the red and green diamonds and arrows, and how accurate it is at pinpointing these momentum shifts and trends, even on an intraday chart. Because a lot of stuff you'll find works fairly well on a daily chart, but then when you start drilling down into shorter time frames where you get more volatility and chop, these systems can often break down and they don't work as well. But this also can work for you day traders out there. So what we've done is we put together a package for you called TradeTrend as an add-on to MetaStock to help cut the learning curve and help you trade like a pro starting as soon as tomorrow. So you're going to have access to this today, and Jeff will tell you how you can get it here in just a minute. Again, it's called TradeTrend, and it helps you get in before the MACD signal. And it does so with a proprietary blend of momentum indicators that can produce nearly instant profits. It helps predict short-term and long-term trends with really astounding accuracy, as I've demonstrated to you on some of the charts we've looked at today. Again, it works with stocks, it works with futures, it works with forex. And the cool thing is you can use MetaStock and TradeTrend to screen for these trade opportunities in a matter of seconds. So it doesn't take a whole lot of legwork. And again, it works at any time frame. So whether you're a trader on the 5-minute charts or you trade off the daily charts like I do, you can use it on any time frame. And you can even back test to see the results before you place a trade. That's one feature that I really love about MetaStock, is their robust back testing tool. It's really incredible, all the different metrics it gives you so that you can test this out before you put live money to work in the market. And it also can allow you to supercharge your options strategy. So again, I mentioned that we have a lot of members who use TradeTrend to trade options, and a lot of them will come to us trading very costly multi-leg options spreads like iron condors that can be very commission intensive when you're trading 4 legs, especially if you're exiting those trades prior to expiration. And a lot of those people will simplify their strategies and go to straight call and put purchases. And we still have members that use them to trade things like credit spreads, and they really improve the accuracy of the timing of getting into trades like a credit spread. And the idea behind it is to help you trade like a pro without any guesswork. So the cool thing is TradeTrend gives you everything that you need. It tells you when to get in, it tells you how to manage the trade with a trailing stop order, and it tells you when to get out. So I'll show you kind of what that looks like. This is what your screen on MetaStock using TradeTrend would look like. You get the chart, and you can configure this as you see fit, but I like to have my chart on the right side and then my commentary on the left. And you can pull up any day in the past as well as the current day or whatever time frame you're trading in. And it's going to give you all the instructions. You can see on the left that on this particular day, July 5th, 2018, TradeTrend told us that there was a long setup that had formed and that it was projecting a move up in price. And then it told us that the suggested entry price is $53.32 using a buy stop order. So it tells you everything you need to know, the entry price, the type of order to use. And then it also tells you not to take the trade if price goes above a certain level. So like if the stock gaps up the next morning past the suggested entry price, it tells you not to take it, take the trade. And then if the trade is triggered, if it's entered, it tells you exactly where to place your trailing stop order. And once the trade's open, it gives you instructions every bar, so that would be every day on a daily chart, or if you're trading, let's say, a 30-minute chart, every 30 minutes, it will tell you exactly where to place your orders. So I just picked one random example out of the center here where, again, it's kind of scrunched up, and I apologize for that, but we get the green arrow and diamond telling us to go long. So if we just bought 1,000 shares here, this one particular trade in the center of the chart produced a profit of over $3,500 on 1,000 shares before commissions and fees. And you can see there are lots of opportunities. TradeTrend gives us a lot of opportunities to buy and sell. So I'll put this in dollar terms for you options traders out there. Rather than cherry pick one out of the center like I did on that previous chart, what I did is I took the 5 consecutive signals that TradeTrend identified on Micron at the end of last year, and I picked this time period because, as you saw in the charts we've already looked at, this was a very volatile time, and it was also a time when the market nearly went into bear territory. So I wanted to use this as kind of a true test of what's possible with TradeTrend. And if you're an options trader, well, first of all, if you're a stock trader, it still did very well. There was 1 loss out of 5. TradeTrend keeps the losses nicely contained and lets the profits on the winners run. So on 1,000 shares, over $13,500 in profit on these 5 consecutive trades. So if you're just buying calls and puts, if you trade options, you could have put up a lot less capital, and on 10 contracts produced a profit on those exact same signals of nearly $7,000, all right, before commissions and fees. So these are, again, 5 consecutive trades from the end of 2018. All right, so I like to provide a guarantee because I don't believe you should just jump into something and not have something to fall back on when you're getting into something new. So my guarantee with TradeTrend for Metastock is if you don't make money in the first 60 days, and we're going to show you how you can get access to this here in a second and try it out first, I'm going to give you another 60 days of signals at no cost. So that's out of my pocket. That's on me. I will personally pay for your subscription for 60 days to continue to use it. That's how confident I am in it. So a little bit about what our members are saying about TradeTrend before Jeff tells you how you can get your hands on it. Jay Thomas says, very impressive results. Well done. Thanks for helping us little guys with small accounts who dream of growing our accounts over time and reaping the benefits of consistent monthly income. Again, I said this does work with both small and large accounts. Frank says, how refreshing to have someone produce a product that does what it says. I thought it was too good to be true at first, but you proved me wrong. Thanks, and keep up the good work. Chris says, first of all, I want to thank you for providing such a first-class alert service. It's really the only one that delivers on promise, and I've tried a few. After having demo traded for nearly 2 months, I'm now happy to go live. And Alan says, I've been involved with lots of software testing. Alan was one of our initial beta testers, and we selected him because he's actually a software designer and developer and has a lot of knowledge about software. And he's done a lot of testing for trading softwares. And he says that TradeTrend seems to do exactly as it says. And so far, he could find some really nice setups. And then lastly, Craig says, my first trade paid for the entire package. Nothing ever works for me this fast. I wish I found you guys last year before the big market dips. So those are just a handful of the many testimonials we get on a daily basis from our TradeTrend users. And so I'll wrap it up with one of my favorite quotes before I hand it back over to Jeff. And that is from Mark Twain. The secret to getting ahead is getting started. And I really think that's true because not everyone will take advantage of what I'm offering today, whether it's using the MACD indicator to predict market momentum shifts or using the TradeTrend indicator to get in before the MACD and potentially do even better than the MACD by itself. And I realize that not everyone is going to act on that. And to me, it's unfortunate, but I understand it. We all come across opportunities on a regular basis, and we just don't act on all of them. But if you want to have the potential to get ahead in your trading, you'll want to act on the TradeTrend add-on for Metastock. So with that, I'm going to open it up to Q&A. We'll take any questions that come through, and then we'll have Jeff put a link in the chat. I don't know if he'll put it in the Q&A or the questions box or the chat box, but we'll put it up, and he'll talk to you a little bit about how you can get access to TradeTrend on Metastock. And if I don't get to your question today, you are free to email us at support@thetradingprofit.com. Or you can always call our toll-free number 800-895-9348, and we're happy to answer any questions you have about TradeTrend, about the software itself. If you have any questions about the Metastock platform, it would probably be best to direct those to Metastock. And the folks over there are very, very helpful.
We're very good at answering.
In terms of the functionality of Metastock. I think it's a very user-friendly software. I actually use it myself. I love the scanning feature. I love the back testing feature. And I love a lot of things about it. I love the simplicity of the charting. And so I have some basic understanding of it, but everyone over at Metastock is tremendously helpful with those things. And they even provide a white glove treatment to help you get set up over the phone and get the Trade Trend add-on into your Metastock platform. All right, so I'm going to pass it back over to you, Jeff, and let me know if there are any questions. I can't see I think we're broadcasting to YouTube as well. I can't see a lot of the questions. So if you want to just let me know what questions you want me to address, I will go ahead and do that. And then you can let the students know how to get Trade Trend.
YouTube's actually unusually quiet, but there's not really a lot of questions. I did help, and I think I answered his question in terms of changing a MACD to a histogram. There was one comment I wanted to read, though. Daniel Douglas says, I'm a Trade Trend user, and it is great. Space, exclamation mark, explanation mark. So,
thanks,
double explanation mark.
Glad you're doing well with it. That's great to hear.
I did want to. I'm going to take a little bit of the screen control back. I'm
Sure.
curious, just for a little bit of fun here. Let's go ahead and actually show my screen. We'll go back to the picture of you, and let's see. I was gonna actually show how the scans work, but it seems like my Metastock has logged itself off. Let's see if we can get that running real quick. Again, the comments and the feedback that we have been tremendous in terms of this. I really appreciate this, and it's been a substantial amount of customers that we've had as well. I think I was going to kind of go in and run a scan, but I'm going to talk about it instead, simply because I've been trying to do a little bit of development work over here on my laptop. I think I logged myself out of Metastock, and I locked myself out of the account. So we won't worry about showing you the scan. I'll just talk a little bit about how it works and my experience with it yesterday. We yesterday ran a little bit of a scan. We were looking for some good opportunities. Amazon came up. I just love the ability for Metastock to go in and say, okay, well, there's 4,500 opportunities that exist there in the market. Show me the ones that actually kind of have an opportunity now. Let's ignore all the noise, because there's so much noise in the market. And the stock that actually came up was Amazon. It looked good. I was thinking about exactly why this system is working as well as it is, and it is working well. And it just is very, very adaptable. It's a little bit of a shorter term. As you know, we're in a very volatile marketplace right now, and it does a really good job of kind of helping you catch those little shorter term time frame squeezes. You're seeing a lot of programs that are kind of underperforming because of kind of the volatility in the market. And Jeff, you've done a great job of kind of capturing those moves.
Yeah, and I'll add to that because I did forget to mention it. The algorithm behind Trade Trend and kind of going back to that fundamental definition of momentum and how linear momentum is predictive. It is adaptive, as Jeff mentioned. So it's an artificial intelligent algorithm that does adapt to market conditions. And as Jeff also mentioned, the flaw in most systems is that when they're developed, they work at the time when the developer creates them. And that's great because they developed them for the current market environment. Unfortunately, most of those end up failing at some point down the road because the market conditions change and the system doesn't adapt to the new market conditions. And that's what's different about Trade Trend, is that it is adaptive and it takes into account the momentum and market volatility. And so it's not something that's going to just work, for the next week or month or even year. It's something that's going to adapt to market conditions far down the road. And that's why in the presentation, I give examples of all these major sell-offs going back, to the 2008 major market correction, and how these aren't just flukes, that we can actually predict these ahead of time with a high degree of accuracy because of the adaptive nature of the momentum indicators. And so we program those into Trade Trend in a way that they do adapt to market conditions. And the idea, of course, behind that is to ensure that the system continues to work regardless of what the overall market conditions are, meaning that it will help keep us out of the market when there's not a strong momentum direction or trend in place, and it helps us get us in when the algorithm identifies the perfect ideal timing to get in, whether it be long or short.
All right, you ready for another question?
Yeah.
So Keela says, and I'm sure I pronounced that exactly right. Thanks for the great session. Is this approach profitable for day traders as well?
Yeah, great question. And as I showed you, we kind of focused more on the daily charts today, just simply because that's what I predominantly trade off of. And I'm just one of those guys. I believe in showing and teaching what I personally do. But I also showed a few charts in there on intraday charts, shorter time frames, where it does also give really nice signals. And so that's a really great question. And my answer is yes, we have many members who do use it to day trade. We have traders that use it all the way down to they'll scalp off of a ticker, a 1 minute chart. And the reason that it works well, regardless of time frame, again, is because of the fundamental methodology that it uses of momentum. So momentum and trends exist regardless of time frame, right? So if we're trading a 5 minute chart, you're still going to get buying and selling pressure. So if you use a system that is momentum based, it has the potential to do much better across timeframes than certain systems that may use different metrics to try to identify trends. And those are the ones that tend to perform better on longer time frame charts because they're not good at timing the shifts in momentum. And you get a lot more of those and a lot more choppiness as you drill down on the time frame. So if you're using a good system, it should work well across all time frames. And if it doesn't, then the system is probably flawed. So I would pay very close attention to that. But yes, it does work across all time frames. We have members that use it across all time frames.
Dimitri asks, as a follow-up, Achilles says, I pronounced the name perfectly. So I knew it.
Oh,
nailed
wow,
it.
Nice.
Dimitri says, could you send us a link to the recorded version? I missed a good part of the session. You can go watch it now. youtube.com/metastock. Look for it in the category of uploads. It's just a little bit down the page, and it'll be either the first or second video there. While you're there, make sure to like and subscribe.
Also, Jeff, you put that link in the chat box earlier in the session.
Yeah, I did. Okay. In addition to that, let's see. I think that's pretty much it. Let's go ahead and so the offer that we're going to do today, and this is a really good, like I said, it's been a fantastic product. Normally it's about $90 a month. We're actually going to do like a free trial. So we'll give you a free trial to Metastock. We'll give you the data region of your choice. You can get all the data in America or all the data in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. We'll help you with that white glove installation. There's a training class that's available to you as soon as you purchase the program. And we're even going to give you a on-demand course that goes into more detail. To take advantage of this free trial, what you're going to do is just go to metastock.com/TradeTrend. You can also give us a call at 800-882-3040, or you can chat in at metastock.com/saleschat. So I do want to say just for a second, in case you're not familiar with Metastock, in case you haven't heard about Metastock, Metastock I've worked here at the company for 23 years this year, and it doesn't feel like that long, and I don't feel that old. Starting to lose the hair on the top though, but for the last 25 years in a row, Metastock's been rated #1 in its price category by the readers of Stocks and Commodities magazine, that price category being $0 to $500. 25 years in a row it's been rated #1. So you can get this. You can get one of our most popular add-ons this year, and you can try it out totally risk-free. And so what you're going to do is you're going to come up to metastock.com/TradeTrend. When you go up there, you're going to get a page that looks very, very similar to this. You'll see a somewhat handsome guy over here to the left. As you scroll down, basically you can just sign up to get your free month of TradeTrend right here. If you don't have Metastock yet, go ahead and sign up. There's a reason it's been rated #1 23 years in a row. It's going to enable you to do all the scanning. It's going to enable you to find the opportunities that you're missing. It's going to enable you to go in and with TradeTrend, see exactly what your entry price should be, see exactly what your stop loss is. Everything's actually detailed in plain English. Jeff did a really good job of kind of verbalizing that in a succinct manner that's still clear. So just come up to metastock.com/TradeTrend, elect to get the free trial. If you want the DC version of Metastock, go ahead and click there. DC just stands for daily charts. So that'll give you daily, weekly, monthly, and quarterly, anything above a daily increment you can look at. If you want real-time data, you can go ahead and get the real-time offer. That'll give you basically real-time data. Now, there's a little bit of a caveat there because your FX data will be real-time. But if you do want real-time data from like the exchanges, like New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, Amex, you will have to pay for that to get it real-time. It costs, for stocks, it's actually fairly inexpensive. I believe the running rate is about $12 for all of the exchanges here in the US. That's not a fee that we make very much money on. It's a fee that gets paid to the exchanges. We just collect it on your behalf. You're welcome to use it with delayed data if you want. That'll be completely free for you. If you want to go real time, you're welcome to pay those exchange fees. It's totally up to you. But yeah, just select the ones that you want. Go ahead and click on order now. The other thing is if you have questions that we missed, you can give us a call. We do have reps here that are great. I started in the inside sales team. They can answer any questions they've got. They can help you get set up for your white glove installation appointment. Give them a call at 800-882-3040. You can also chat online with them at metastock.com/saleschat. So I think that's about what I had. Big Home Me on YouTube. Big Homie. Big Homie says, does it work with end of day? It does. You can do this with either end of day or the real-time version, and it works just fine. No problem at all. So with that being said, Jeff, thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Do you have any final thoughts, predictions for...
No, thanks for having me. One thing I did forget to mention, just Big Homie's question kind of sparked it. The signals that you get, regardless of time frame, so if you're using the end of day daily chart package, you actually get them in advance. So when you get your instructions on where to where to enter your orders, you know an entire 1 to 3 days ahead of time. So you don't need to be sitting at your computer during the day while the market's open. You can actually get the signal, and the signal is valid for up to 3 days. And the same goes for intraday's charts as well. So if you end up choosing the real-time package, let's say you're trading the 30-minute chart, those signals are valid for up to 3 bars. So you'd have up to an hour and a half for that signal to trigger a trade. So this isn't something where you necessarily have to get in right away with a market order. You're given instructions and you have time to enter the order with your broker. So that's kind of the beauty behind it. And I forgot to mention that, but you do get that advanced warning with every signal. So with that, I would just say I'm excited for everybody who joins us today. I think this market volatility is here to stay for a while. I think that, given the fact we've been in an unprecedented long-term bull market over really 10 years now, just in terms of cyclic market behavior, and now that we're seeing things like an inverted yield curve, which often is a warning of a recession and bear market, I want you guys to be prepared for when that comes around, because it will come around. We just don't know when. None of us has a crystal ball, but we know that it will happen. And I hope you guys join Metastock and TradeTrend so you can have the tools in your toolbox to be prepared for that when it does. So I'll just leave with that. So thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, thanks for being here. And thanks for everybody that came. The last thing I'll add is, as traders, we are always looking for a good risk reward. This is free. What do you have to lose? You can always cancel if it doesn't work for you. So www.metastock.com/TradeTrend. Want to, again, thanks, Jeff, for your time. For all of you that took time out of your busy days to come watch us, I appreciate it. And as always, I'll see you at the next one.